So let's go test it out for a minute, and then after that, we'll get into the thick of it.
Yeah, it says broadcast successful. I don't even have Bones open at this point because I reset my whole browser. So let me pull this back up real quick. Yeah. So all right, Bones are up. Okay. I'll see what it looks like, I guess.
It sounds all right, actually. So I looked at the video, and it sounds right. It might be just the green room that is making it sound super.
Okay. All right. So should I end this and start again, or should we just roll with it because it's working?
Yeah, let's start again.
All right, end stream. Hello, everybody. This is Travis.
Hello, everybody. This is Brandon.
Welcome to. Did I wake you up early, Brandon? Like, are you there? Are you?
Yeah, I am here. Just really trying to manage to work our way through technical issues.
It's a new common theme with the show, Brandon. Welcome everybody to Interdimensional RSS, the unofficial Rick and Morty podcast. We're so happy we could have you here. We have been battling through what is almost an hour now of technical difficulties, but hopefully we have a video version of the podcast that will be available to the currently one patron on Patreon that we were doing this for. But for you, the audio listener, fear not. We use a separate audio equipment for recording, and you should get the sultry sounds of our voices coming through your, I don't know, your ear pods or your high definition noise canceling headphones, whatever you use to listen to. Yeah. Maybe it's a hi-fi cassette player on your classic
we get
car.
it. I'm the one who's supposed to get distracted and talk a long time about nothing. Thank you everyone for listening. We have a show. It is a show for you today. But let's get the social media stuff out of the way. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it because it's right here, and I'm the one who since we're getting things Rick.
We're switching roles.
There's a mix up. Twitter at Rick and Morty Pod. You can hit us up over on our subreddit, Rick and Morty Podcast.reddit.com, Facebook, Rick and Morty Podcast, Rick and Morty Podcast at gmail.com. Send us those emails. We'd love those emails. Hey, we got some merch over on that TeePublic ! As Travis put in the show notes, www.apatheticenthusiasm.com/shop. Also, Patreon. Hey, we have some rewards out there. Fantastic rewards. Just the greatest rewards, the best rewards.
We have the best rewards. Everyone says so.
You can find that at www.patreon.com/rickandmortypod. We have something kind of special for you. Well, it's not special really. So we are working with Blazing Caribou Studios. We've our fellow podcasters. We've done a few things with them before, but we are doing a Podcasters Unite event tomorrow, September 12th, 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern. We are on 1 to 2 a.m. Eastern. So if you are bored, we are trying to raise money for hurricane relief and teaming up with some fellow podcasters for that. But that is it. That is our social media stuff.
You did it, Brandon. I'm so proud of you. You did such a great job. But I'm not letting you off the hook quite yet, because as soon as we're done talking about social media, it's time for semi-pertinent news.
We're going to do it again. Semi-pertinent news. Talking semi-pertinent. Talking semi-pertinent.
Yeah. You know, I feel like you just keep making music until you see that I'm laughing, and then you're like, "All right, we got it. All right, there's the song."
Yeah, absolutely. That's my gauge.
Yeah, you're like, am I doing it right? Okay, yeah. He's trying to silently laugh on the other end of the microphone. I guess we got one. All right, folks. First up in semi-pertinent news, we got some more merch available this week. New from McFarlane Toys. The Rick and Morty construction sets have finally been released in stores. I think they're only available in GameStops, or maybe, and then you could probably buy them online somewhere. But they definitely didn't have it at the Target I went to yesterday.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited because the sets they include they have all the favorites, right? Ants in My Eyes Johnson,
All the faves, the classics.
Scary Terry, and Discreet Assassin, Crumbopulous Michael. I think.
Yeah, I found it interesting that they didn't include his actual name, Crumbopulous Michael. They just call him Discreet Assassin. I don't know if I don't understand why they didn't have the name, or maybe they just wanted to make it more generic. And I don't know. So you could imagine any discreet assassin that may exist in the multiverse.
Or for a marketing thing, they're like, no one's going to know how to pronounce this. Let's just say Discreet Assassin.
Crom Bomb Plum Plum. Yeah, I don't know. Buy him the guy with the ants in the eyes. Do that. I don't know. I'm excited. I'm on the lookout for some of these construction sets. I'd love to have some set up here in the old office, and yeah, they're cool. It's a little bit different. It's a blend between Legos and other branded merchandise.
Yeah, I will probably try. I'm not going to do the search like you did. I'll probably just order them online, alongside the Rick and Morty coloring book. I want to get that as well. That's out. Not sure.
I got my eyes set on the old the art book, which is dropping this month. So you know me and my arts, Brandon, my arts and farts and crafts.
Fart jokes and from Wet Hot American Summer. All right. Oh, you okay? That's a pause. Hey, go ahead, Travis.
Next up in news, we have another good news story. We talked about our attempt at a fundraiser later this week, but the good folks over at the H3 podcast got Justin Roiland and who was it, Alex Hirsch?
Yep. That's right.
And they all got together to raffle off some awesome prizes in an attempt to raise money for Harvey relief. And at the point when I wrote the show notes, they'd raised over $200,000. So really awesome job. It was an extended live stream that they did. I think the raffles might still be open as of the time that we're recording this. But if you're listening to this, you may want to rush out if you didn't get a chance to enter, because those should be closing pretty soon. Really cool stuff. They raffled off some bottles of Szechuan sauce, some exclusive merch, a bunch of signed stuff, Squanch Tendo t-shirt. They had some cool Gravity Falls stuff. Yeah.
Some really bitchin' Gravity Falls stuff.
Yeah. It was like a giant statue and all kinds of stuff, but really cool. There was a video going around. I think somebody donated a large sum of money, and then they had to do a prank call on the podcast. And so Justin Roiland did a prank call of the mega church down there that was getting a bunch of flack for not opening their doors during the storm.
Yep.
And so he called their prayer line as Rick. And there was a pretty hilarious conversation that took place. If you haven't got a chance to listen to it, go check it out. I would happily accept. I would happily accept a prank call from Rick. I think that'd be fun times. Anytime Rick wants to call in on the podcast, hit us up.
Yeah, I would concur with that. He just to let you know, he will not be helping us and Blazing Caribou out.
No, he has not agreed to do that whatsoever.
But it'll be me and Travis, and that will be fantastic. But great job over there for the H3 podcast. Raising that money's dough.
Yeah. All right, folks, that's it for semi-pertinent news. It's now time to discuss the episode that many are calling their favorite of the season, if not the series. It's time for the main thing.
It's the main thing. I'm holding my ear because I got to get the note right, and I'm doing the little Z thing, like the singers do.
Yeah, like all the pop stars do with their hands.
It's survival in the main thing, baby. When you live from day to day. There you go. That's some Joe Walsh. That's Joe Walsh before he recorded with the Eagles.
Yeah, let's not get it twisted. All right, folks. What an episode we have to discuss with you today. The Rick Lantis mix-up, written by Dan Gutterman and Ryan Ridley, and directed by Dominic Polcino. Pulsino? I'm not good
I
with
would,
pronunciation.
for names, we'll just go this route. I will go with Dan Guterman and
Guterman, Gutterman,
Dominic
Guts.
Pulcino. That's what I'll do.
All right,
In
Guts. Gotta have him.
in Unity, let us know which of those is right.
Yeah, tweet at us your favorite pronunciation. I'm just gonna go with first names from now on. So Dan, Ryan, and Dominic, great job on the episode. And as some may have speculated, not exactly about Atlantis. They had promoted for the 2 weeks because we had the break last week that Rick and Morty would be traveling to Atlantis, but they pulled the old Atlantis diversion trick. And while our C-137 Rick and Morty enjoyed a one-off adventure in Atlantis, we are instead treated to the Tales from the Citadel, where social issues abound, and we finally catch up with a fan favorite, Evil Morty, or Eye Patch Morty, whatever you want to call this little guy right up here.
I would call him Evil Morty. I think that's a preferred nomenclature for our young evil friend.
Is that how the kids are saying it over on the boards, over on the message boards that they're blogging on?
Over like in all the like. I'll just say this about this episode. I've seen more talking in the comments and in the Reddit than I've seen for a lot of the episodes this season, because the serialization, I think, and what it means for the Rick and Morty universe is pretty interesting stuff. And well, I mean, we'll get into it the more we talk about this episode, but this episode it's the most cinematic episode, I think, of Rick and Morty ever. I'll throw that out there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, from the sort of the opening montage where we get the title sequence and, the music playing, and there's like a montage of scenes from throughout the Citadel as people are headed off to work and doing their day-to-day jobs and living out their Citadel lives. It really had like a different initial feel, and then as it moved through and we got to learn more and more about really like almost 4 different storylines and different scenarios going on throughout the Citadel, it was really interesting, and the repercussions obviously can be very huge going forward throughout the rest of the season and possibly the series.
Yeah, so. Definitely.
So Brandon, you thought it would be a good idea to break this down by the different storylines that took place in the Citadel, and you gave them clever nicknames. So I will allow you to start us off with our first segment.
All right, the first segment, we're going with what Ryan Ridley hasn't liked. We are naming each of these segments after Rick. So first,
Rick puns.
First up, Ricking Day, and we're talking about the Training Day-ish story. Where basically a rookie cop Rick is hanging out with a rugged veteran Morty cop. So Travis, like what? How do you want to do this, Travis? Do you want to go through it and just describe it?
Well, I mean, most of the folks listening to this episode or listening to this podcast have seen the episode. I don't think we have to get into too many specifics about like what happened, but there were some really interesting things. I felt like this bit of the storyline really dealt a lot with how Mortys on the Citadel, specifically Rickless Mortys, became sort of the seedy underbelly of the Citadel. Like most of the crime that took place in the Citadel was because of Mortys who didn't have a when they weren't a sidekick, they were just left kicking sides, I think is what the cop Morty said. And so there were a lot of really interesting things here. I liked the sort of switching roles that we got, where instead of the Rick in this situation being the experienced person that was sort of leading things, we had a more experienced Morty that took a Rick under his wings. I thought that was a really interesting change of pace. What did you think about that?
The Training Day references abound. I also thought of like Copland a little bit, Colors, which had Robert Duvall, Sean Penn, and Dennis Hopper, and like all of that. This is the point I want to bring up later when we get through all of them. But like using this kind of trope, this cliche, like it really helped us to like explore this underbelly, this gangland esque Morty town. I'll throw a Chinatown reference in there as well. Um, the whole just like why is there crime, and it's establishing something that we'll see later in the episode. Using this as a means to take advantage of a situation, and all these poor, displaced, socially inept Mortys who all wear yellow shirts, and they're all about this high.
Normal Mortys. They're like 15.
Put it in your blog.
What? What do you mean? I love that line. I absolutely did. I really like the exchange between the cop Morty and the couple Mortys on the street when they're just like, "Ah, geez," he was just, "Ah, geez," and they're just doing very stereotypical Morty lines in their conversation.
Yeah.
What did you think of the what was the nightclub called?
The Creepy Morty.
The Creepy Morty. That got real weird there for a little bit.
Yeah. Real quick, just about the odd G's little conversation. I really like that from the cop Morty's perspective, like using street slang in order to seem like he was one of them, right?
Right, exactly.
More Training Day homages abound. But okay, so the Creepy Morty. I don't. I'm going to use Rick's advice. I don't want to think about it. too much. But Big Morty, he runs that place with an iron fist. Although it's just a figure of speech. He's not actually Big Morty.
That's right. Some of my favorite lines from the episode, I think, took place in the Creepy Morty, though. Aside from seeing all the interesting varieties of Morty that hung out in there. The dancing Morty that said, "Hey, want to dance? One dance for 10, 225." It was just like a typical Morty thing. Like, come on, just get him back in his math class. Like, and then when they're being given the money, and Cop Morty says, "Think of him as a drug lord, and as us as cops on his payroll." Like he used zero metaphor whatsoever, just said exactly what was going on. Yeah. And it just had me laughing every time I watched the episode over.
I liked when they're in the booth and Big Morty kept saying they kept saying Morty, and then the two bodyguards are like, "You talking to us?" Like, no.
What?
Yeah, that killed me. I really like the part. So earlier they're trying to track down the Mortytown locos, and one of them tricks Cop Rick into plaguing on his sincerity, I guess, and then stabs him in the back, right? And
right.
I thought that was such a good way of, at the end of that arc where Cop Morty is trying to do the same thing, like, "Oh, Grandpa Rick, I wanna throw a ball, I wanna masturbate."
Yeah,
like trying.
I just want to be a normal Morty.
Trying to do that same thing, and by that point in time, Cop Rick is sees through it. Right, he's already been through it once.
Yeah, he's figured it out.
I
thought that was really well done, and it kind of gave a beginning and an end to that arc as well.
Yeah, in like it was all such a good self-contained story. They all are really. In like earlier in that portion, Morty says to him, there's nothing wrong with putting your faith in a Morty. You just have to pick the right one. And there's also another line about just Morty's killing Mortys. And then it circles back at the end, and it says just Rick's killing Mortys. And also, I have faith in you. I'm choosing you. Which we'll see thematically later on in the episode.
Yeah, there's definitely some social commentary at work here. Definitely some things that we could relate to current events, and I don't think there's any mistake in the writers using this episode to express some of their thoughts on current events and even events that have been taking place over the last year. Because I know when this episode wasn't written in the last week, it was written months and months ago. So it's interesting to see some of how the things that we're seeing in the news were played out in this version of the Citadel, and it's definitely the most, I think, politically charged episode of the series for sure.
Absolutely, and we're gonna get into more of that. So thank you for listening to Interdimensional RSS, the social commentary extraction for Rick and Morty. All right, so that was part one. That was part of Ricking Day.
That was one segment of Morty's, but they're not all Mortys experience that sort of seedy underbelly of a life. There's another group.
That's right. The privileged Mortys, they go to a different place, and that's where we get into the Stephen King parody Stand By Morty. The coming of age tale where 4 Mortys head out on a search for the wishing portal.
I don't remember. I wrote that in. I don't remember what exactly that portal was called. I just typed wishing portal in there, but I may have gotten that wrong. Somebody can fact check.
That's right.
Me
they were looking for the wishing portal. That's absolutely right, Travis.
Okay. Yeah, nailed it.
This isn't like fuck summer. It's not like that.
You know, I gotta be on my toes now. People are paying attention, Brandon. I thought this was really interesting. We've seen throughout the course of the season, every intro we see the private school Mortys crawling out of that window, and we didn't really have context, so it was cool to finally get to know these characters. We had Bug Morty. Was it Bug? He was Lizard Morty. Yeah. We had left-handed Morty or fat Morty. We had the emotional or cool Morty that rolled his sleeves.
Drama Morty. Or slick.
Drama Morty. And who was Morty number 4? He had glasses. There was a glasses Morty.
Yeah. And note about Lizard Morty, he wasn't genetically engineered to be a chicken. Throwing that out there.
Let's get that straight from the top. But this was interesting. I don't know. I thought that the school scene that they were in was cool and kind of gave you an idea of how Mortys that were eventually destined to pair up with Mortyless Ricks, how they're sort of recycled. There's even a recycled Morty sign on a back wall in the classroom. So we did get a question from somebody on Reddit about whether or not this was confirmation about Rick and Morty being the same person, because we see Little Rick or Large Morty in this scene.
Yeah.
Tall Morty, that's right. I again don't know that this is it was. Let me see. It was Christopher Stenvoid on Twitter that said that. He asked if it was confirmation, and I don't. Especially after our conversation with Ryan Ridley last week, I almost feel like this is just an opportunity for them to make that joke, and they're not really trying to say anything deeper than that. What do you feel about that?
I think they're just making that joke. They're making enough, like towing that line just enough to keep people thinking that. I personally don't think that theory is true. But I think it's funny, like I think that part is just, he's just really, really, really dumb. And because he's really, really, really dumb, he thinks he's a Morty because Mortys are dumb. So that's why I don't think it's confirmation. But, somewhere down the line, maybe season 9, there'll be some confirmation then, one way or the other.
I didn't dislike this segment of the episode, but I definitely felt like it was the least powerful, maybe of the 4 segments that we got to see. I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool seeing the Mortys sneaking into the Mega Seed farm and trying to nab some Mega Fruit. I don't know. There was some cool parts in this, some good one-line jokes that I thought were funny when they make the wish by the well for incest porn to be more mainstream, for a friend. I was like, all right, that's different. But I don't know. What did you think overall about those scenes?
Well, a couple things. I saw someone on Reddit post this, and I looked after watching the episode, but of course that's supposed to be Slytherin Rick or whatever, Rick from Harry Potter,
Snape or something like that.
But when they're doing the initial intro, the montage intro, and they're walking to class and they're like walking in line, and he's just standing in the middle of them holding the his like cane on the side. Mm-hmm. Very, very reminiscent of Pink Floyd's The Wall for Another Brick in the Wall part.
Ding ding ding. Ding ding ding. Yeah, I totally got that vibe as well.
And I don't know if they meant to do that reference, but just that multiple people felt that way says something, I think. And
I think that image of all of them being Mortys, so they really don't seem to have any sense of individuality. They all seem just like cogs in a machine, and just that one sort of instructor that's watching over them. It definitely had sort of the undertones of Pink Floyd's Wall.
Right. As for the rest of the segment, maybe Stand By Me isn't a movie. Like it's a great movie. Good on you, Stephen King. He likes to do these stories with kids, with a group of kids, like Dreamcatcher or It, which just came out this. Oh my god, fucking that movie's awesome. Okay.
We might have to do an Apathetic Enthusiasm podcast just to
it's so good. But just that whole coming of age story, I think, it's inspirational in they have like the kind of inspirational music in the background whenever the drama Morty is going through his spiel. And then that whole part, the powerful part where they're all throwing their stuff, the surfer necklace for Lizard Morty, the panini maker. Like, I wish for 1,000,000 sandwiches, and I get it's ironic or whatever. And they're saying before he throws something in, like, I hope it's important, and then he says I do too, and then he throws himself in to the trash portal.
The trash portal.
That part, I want to think more about that particular scene, but I don't know. It won't be on this podcast where I really figure out my thoughts on it. But I think that's really powerful for him to say, they're all walking through school. They're just cogs in this wheel. They're faceless. They're unimportant. And he, as an individual, wants to be important, and he wants all the Mortys to feel important.
Right, and that, as we'll discuss once we get to this portion, but the ability for Mortys to feel important is something that eventually becomes sort of central to the entire episode and really potentially the arc of the season.
Yeah.
So, which we will get to right after we talk about our next segment, the Ricturian Morty date.
No, we don't. We're going to talk about that.
Oh, I skipped over it. That's the last one. We need to talk about Dog Day Richter Noon, or the alt title Ricking Down.
Yeah. So for those ones, like, I don't think Dog Day Afternoon is actually a good reference for this particular segment, but it was the first thought I had. But Ricking Down, I think, is a far better one. I don't know if you've seen Falling Down with Michael Douglas.
Yes, I have. Many moons ago, but
so
I have
good.
seen
Directed by Joel Schumacher, who then went on to direct the best Batman movies. But yeah, so this was the one where we see Rick in a Willy Wonka-esque factory, working to make
Simple Ricks,
putting those logos on the Simple Ricks wafers.
And then he gets disgruntled. He ends up shooting his boss, and he takes the original Simple Rick hostage. And this is sort of his way of trying to somehow take control of his destiny. He's unhappy, and I found this storyline really interesting, mostly because it brought up a question that I think I've always had about not only the Council of Ricks but the Citadel itself. And it really was hammered home in this episode, where we see a lot of Ricks doing very menial jobs. And for me, I feel like that is at odds with who Rick is. And so for all of these Ricks to, give up their Rickness and go into just, working on a factory line or doing anything that we see a lot of these Ricks doing, it doesn't feel like a Rick thing to do. And so I don't know. How did you feel about that? How did you feel about these Ricks that have almost given up on who they really are, and what benefit are they getting out of it?
Yeah, I maybe we should have saved this for last. It's weird because this one I think ties in to our next segment, the Rick, Tree, and Morty date, which we know that's the title of an episode later on in the season. We know.
We know. We're not original. We get it.
So they all kind of tie in, because one thought, there's Farmer Morty and there's Farmer Rick. There's Plumber Rick. There's which other Factory Rick. Obviously, this is Factory Rick, and in the speech that Evil Morty gives, President Morty gives, he talks about giving up. I wrote this down, but it's all about like giving up who they are, their individuality, but they're all the same. They have the same IQ. Ricks work for a fraction of boss's salaries, even though they have the same IQ. I think that's. I mean, that's. I don't know. I don't know how you.
I don't know. I think
Rick?
it gets back. I think it gets back to the like fundamental reason that the Citadel exists, which was Ricks felt like they were the most important people in the universe, and so who else should they be around than other Ricks? And so they buy into the Citadel idea, but what ultimately ends up happening is they lose what makes them Ricks to begin with. And so this is why our Rick that we follow on the series, C-137, he doesn't buy into the Citadel. He doesn't want to have anything to do with it because he's the Rickest Rick in his opinion, and he wants to do what a Rick is supposed to do, and so he's not going to go sacrifice that to stamp cookies or anything like that. He wants to be who he is. Yeah. And I guess I get that. And obviously you have to allow there to be Ricks that sacrifice that in order to make the community work. But I think it shows that they can only take so much, and this storyline is a great example of even though he's humbled himself to the point where he will just punch wafer cookies. when he decides to make that change and becomes the Rick who he is meant to be, he fashions a gun out of his cookie stamp mechanism, and he's able to kill his boss. He's able to sneak into where the original Simple Rick is being drained of his happiness fluids, and even negotiate with the police Ricks and do all that stuff. So I don't know. I think fundamentally all of these Ricks still have that thing within them, unless they're like a Simple Rick or they're like a doofus Rick or something like that. But for the most part, I think it shows that any of these Ricks could potentially do something bigger than what they've let themselves become at the Citadel.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just the fact that Factory Rick is what I'm calling him has to ask for a portal gun as part of his ransom demands. It says just how unempowered. That's not right. How powerless he is in this society. When he at the very beginning in the montage, when he's on the train and he looks over and he sees like a rich Rick flying a flying car, just like drinking as they're flying, and you can see the sadness on his face, where he's like, why am I not that guy? We're the same guy. Why? What does he have over me other than a status?
Right, because he's Cool Rick. Cool Rick gets the job,
cool.
Even though he's new to the Citadel. I think it's obvious.
Anybody have any
yeah. I also.
All right. See you later.
I also want to take this time to talk about the Simple Rick commercials, both the one that we see at the beginning as well as the one at the end, with Jeff Davis doing the voiceovers, the only non-Justin Roiland voices I think in the entire episode. Yeah. But I absolutely love them. I love those commercials. Initially, when the episode first started and we saw that Simple Rick's commercial, I thought we were going to a full interdimensional RSS or interdimensional cable sort of episode where they're just gonna bounce around the Citadel and show like crazy stuff. Thankfully we got the episode that we did, and then we get the interdimensional cable Morty mind blowers or whatever next week.
Yeah,
but,
I thought too when they started off with like the newscast that they were going in that kind of interdimensional cable-esque direction. Which by the way, throwing that out there, how funny was it with the I forget which dimension Rick it is, but the A, B, C, D.
Yeah, it's Rick D716A, B, and C with the progressively worse facial disfigurations, the worsening scar tissue. And I like how each Rick has a bit of an issue with the subsequent Rick.
Yeah.
Like A has an issue with B, but A and B both look down on C. If there's a D, I feel bad for him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wonder. This is we're not. I don't think we have an answer for this right now, but I wonder if all Ricks are kind of like that, where like the B, C, D, so on and so forth, are just degenerative versions of that prime Rick of that dimension.
Yeah. The further you get out from the finite curve, it just. It gets worse and worse.
It's just like when they say that, the younger kids in a family or younger siblings just get progressively stupider. I don't know if that's true either.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm an oldest child.
I'm the middle kid. Okay. We have more to talk about with that stuff, but I think we're gonna get to the big fish.
The big one, the big deal here, the Rickturian Morty date.
Yes.
Morty for president, which originally started out as a very unsuspecting storyline. I think the idea that you have a bunch of Ricks running for president with an underdog Morty that just wants to be out there and do his part for the Mortys in the Citadel. I thought as it. For being an episode where they're like, this is the episode that we bring back Evil Morty, they did a terrific job of not making it apparent right away that this is who you are seeing. They developed that arc very well, so that little by little you could predict, but more and more throughout the episode you're like, holy crap, look at all the stuff that he's done. To get into the place of power that he is. Yeah,
absolutely. I think I suspected it at the start. I think maybe some people suspected it at the start, just with this overconfident Morty who's telling his campaign manager not to worry about it. And that,
right?
I mean, that started the suspicion right off the bat for me. And then when he's up on stage with your favorite Rick, juggling Rick. The price of the Citadel is too damn high.
Yeah. So, some great Ricks up there on the stage for the debate.
I thought that was great, and it finally gets to the point, and they give Morty I guess a difficult question, and they make fun of him by, oh, here's my retort, and then they fart at him.
Right.
In the question that was asked was, the number of displaced Mortys is soaring, Rick's satisfaction levels are plummeting, and the divide between the two groups is widening. And after they make fun of him, he just turns to him and says, "Are you finished?" Right, just very, very belittling, and then goes off into this speech, which it's a really good speech, and it's given in a way that's both hopeful but also sinister. Like there's so much sinister stuff, because like it's the speech is hopeful, but it's juxtaposed with all these different scenes of Cop and Rick Morty, and then also Factory Morty. I think where Ricks work for a fraction of boss's salaries, even though they have the same IQ. That's the line that's juxtaposed with Factory Rick shooting Boss Rick, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like the Boss Rick is watching the speech as it happens.
Yeah. And saying, Citadel's problems are the Ricks and Mortys feeding on the Citadel's dead, and he had a message for Rick and Morty's keeping alive. That there's more Rick and Mortys that believe in the Citadel than the ones that don't, and you're outnumbered. Like such an inspirational speech.
Very politically charged. It was an interesting way for Morty to gather people onto his side by creating an idealistic group of people that believe in the Citadel and believe in what they're doing, and to a point where if you don't agree with this Morty, then you almost become the villain. Like he doesn't give people the opportunity to disagree with him, because if they don't, well, you're outnumbered, and we're going to create the Citadel that we want, that believes, that there isn't this divide. So obviously the speech did wonders to win the hearts and minds of Ricks everywhere. Yeah. And he ends up actually winning as president. He fires his campaign manager after that
although it was
speech.
Close enough to the election overall, it was close enough to trigger a recount, but joke.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a blowout, and then he hits the thing, and the campaign manager is blown out. But yeah, so here we get, after the campaign manager is fired, he's drowning his sorrows at a bar, and a secretive Rick provides him with a manila envelope that contains secrets. Mm-hmm. Just look at the way that he's dressed. But these, as we discover in the final frames of the episode, this folder shows that the Morty who is running for president is in fact Evil Morty, Eye Patch Morty, and we assume it explains everything that happened in the season 1 episode where this Morty is controlling a Rick and doing all these nefarious deeds.
Right. Yeah, it's so. This goes back to the Ricking Day segment, because same old story. Rick's killing Mortys. It's not the same story, and the wish that Slick Morty wanted, it's coming true. Things are changing, right? It's even like shattering the grand illusion where they're talking about in the after Factory Rick gets killed, and it's a commercial again talking about shattering the grand illusion.
Yeah,
right. Like all these fucking things.
What was it? It was like, I wrote it down. It was come home to the unique flavor of shattering the grand illusion. Come home to Simple Rick's. I was just like, that's whew, I gotta try those cookies.
Yeah. And then again, nothing wrong with putting your faith in a Morty. You just got to pick the right one. And all the population of the Citadel, they've all put their faith in Evil Morty. They don't know he's evil, but it's all there, and it's just so cool. And I don't want to get too political, but man, my political stuff is here. Like progressivism as a vehicle for oppression. That's what I wrote in my notes. Right. It's so interesting that President Morty is using this whole let's come together. Let's come together to get that power, where he's just going to use it now to oppress people. Right? He's in that position now, and it's very possible, yeah. The whole episode is like super like anti-communist. It's like it. I guess the Citadel Ricks in general is kind of this communist idea where they're all the same. Everyone's the same. They all have the same skills and abilities. But they're on equal playing ground. But still, we see like the proletariat as Farmer Rick, Plumber Rick, and so on and so forth, and the bourgeoisie, which is like Cool Rick and Boss Rick, and the folks who actually run the citadels of Rick. Like, God.
Yeah, what was it? Was it like fashion market Rick? Yeah. And there's definitely like a Steve Jobs Rick back there, and the Charlie and the Willy Wonka Rick, and all those guys back there.
Yes, it's just. I won't go anymore. But this is the closest I've been to on this podcast to like trying to be like film school again. There's yeah. So much you can take from this episode beyond just it's a Rick and Morty episode about Tales in the Citadel and Evil Morty. Like it's far deeper than episodes that have come before it, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it continues the dark theme that season 3 has promised. Some of the things that are dealt with here are not laughing matters, and realistically, if you look at them through the lens of Rick and Morty, you can kind of joke with them. But when you consider some of the stuff that's being displayed in this episode and how it reflects current life in our country and I'm sure around the world, it becomes very sombering and very I don't know, it's the realities of it come forward a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I want to we've talked about social commentaries. Obviously Dan Harmon, if you listen to Harmontown, he is not afraid to make political statements, and I definitely think that this was an opportunity for him and maybe the rest of the writing staff to get some of their ideas out there using this vehicle that they have with Rick and Morty. And I think it was done very well, and many people have said that this is their favorite Rick and Morty episode. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
What final thoughts? Let's talk about favorite bits. We were able to sprinkle most of them in, but were there any additional bits that didn't get covered, Brandon, that you thought were particularly exceptional?
I think there are. There's comedy in this episode, but that's
Absolutely.
not what I've left with. Like
that's not the takeaway.
Yeah, like
sure. Yeah,
like a power vacuum. Somebody I read on Reddit, and I agree with it. The whole, and Ridley mentioned it on our interview. The whole like filling in a power vacuum, that the destruction that Rick's done. Rick has destroyed the Citadel of Ricks, and all these Mortys are refugees that are piling into the Citadel, and it's created this vacuum. In just rewind a little bit to mid 2000s, the whole power vacuum in Iraq, that's a thing. Democratic elections, like this, it's a thing that happened.
It's a thing. It's
history, and it's allowed Evil Morty to become president.
Yeah, and I did find it interesting just how much, when we did get the 2 clips at the beginning and the end, how much C-137 Rick has completely blown off the validity of the Citadel of the Ricks. He said that anyone that cares about them is just wasting their time, and that they're definitely not going to impact them in any way, shape, or form moving forward.
Anyone continuing to
That's clearly foreshadowing of what is yet to come on the rest of the season.
Yeah, he says anyone continuing to explore a Citadel is either stupid or one of the millions being held hostage by their terrible ideas. And then,
well, there you go.
And then they end with, that place will never have any bearing over our lives ever again. Let's go to Atlantis every week.
Yep, for that mermaid puss.
Yeah, that mermaid puss.
All right. Well, I'm gonna jam through a couple of notes that I think things that cracked me up. One of the things was when Junkie Rick was making bootleg portal fluid and was killed in his own portal. I thought the art in that moment was exceptionally done. Every time they were having a conversation between either Rick's or Morty's, and they realize that they're all the same age and all at the same point in their lives, even though their lives are vastly different, every time they did that, I was cracking up. Yeah, and then I think that was it. That was everything else we talked about. And juggling Rick.
Yeah, juggling Rick.
That's my new guy.
Your man. Pitching the policeman's ball to a black teenager. Thought that was a good line.
All right, Unity. You guys are awesome, and as soon as this episode finished, we were inundated with tweets, and we posted on our subreddit and got a ton of great feedback. So thank you guys for Brandon. I don't know what kind of pantomime you're doing over there, but inundated. But yeah, so I want to run through some of these really quick. Over from our subreddit. Reddit names are crazy, but I'm going to do my best here. Fark Hipov says it's definitely the darkest episode yet. Nick the Infamous thought this was the best episode of the series. Did not see the plot twist coming at all. PCAS 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Definitely interesting seeing more of the Citadel. It's Kristen Leto finally in Evil Morty. Still hate Tammy though. Deuce. Haven't been this excited over a series since Mr. Robot, and so lucid. Honestly, all I can think about is that sweet mermaid puss.
Sweet mermaid puss.
Thanks to everybody that shot us stuff over on Reddit. I do want to say, because I'm afraid we're gonna get into listener suggestions and miss this, but the way that they, even though it became very obvious after Morty had killed everybody else in that boardroom, but the way that they brought that same music back from the end of season 1 when they showed Evil Morty, that was just a brilliant touch, and I love that that's sort of his theme music, and that, I don't know, like as they zoom out and like that music confirms it, but then they also show the files and that confirms it. It just, that final shot was so excellent, and one of my favorite.
Yeah,
I think,
definitely. Sure. And like the hole in the head, where like you can see the background through the hole in the head as everything's floating. So cool.
Right. And just all the bodies of all the people that were sort of pawns in Evil Morty's rise to power.
Including
I
Secret
thought that
Rick,
was really
of course.
cool.
He was one of those bodies.
That's right. Trench coat.
I just want to make this last point, and it's, rewind everybody to my video game episode, and bringing all these antagonists together. The Tammy with Phoenix Person at the end thing. What do we call it? Envelope, the second half of the envelope, whatever. The post credits tag, and now Evil Morty is president. Like, and then of course Morty's Mind Blowers next week. I mentioned Rick recording memories, so I'm just throwing out there. I should be a writer, is what I'm saying.
All right, the second or third job for Brandon writing on the show. All right, folks, let's get into our last segment. It's time for listener suggestions and short outs. Brandon, we had a ton of special shout out to Shut Up Casey, who hit us up with a $50 sponsorship for the month. So, I mean, thank you, Casey.
Hell yeah.
You're the man. You covered our hosting fees for the month. So.
Hell yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And we will get you all those rewards and more. Not more. You just get the rewards.
Not more. You get the pre-established rewards. But everybody else that is checking out the Patreon, just thanks. Appreciate the help. All right, from Twitter, I talked about Christopher Steinvold's confirmation of Morty growing into Rick. Chuck Punch hit us up right after the episode was done, and he had 3 thoughts. He thinks that the evil president is C-137 Morty. I disagree. I'm sorry, but I do. He also thinks that the cop Rick will end up helping C-137 Rick in the future. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, let's go ahead and add the last part of that, which is we won't see either of them for the rest of the season. I don't know. I had that thought about cop Rick, who is like the good Rick. There's this movie called Colors, which is, I mentioned it earlier, but Robert Duvall is like the grizzled veteran, and then Sean Penn is the one who's like the rookie. By the end of the movie, Sean Penn is like the grizzled veteran. So we can either see it go that Cop Rick, we never see him again, or Cop Rick becomes the grizzled veteran, or he's like the one who's like doing a Serpico and he's trying to take out he's trying to take care of business in the department. But we won't see either of them for the rest of the season. Episode 10 is the Rick Trian Morty did, and the tag for that is Rick goes up against the president. So maybe
I'm inclined to think we will definitely see Evil Morty again before the end of the season. Just a hunch. Just a hunch. Quick thanks to all the other peeps that thought to tweet us as soon as the show was over, including Terry Wolf, Robin Slim, Jerry Young, Brian Buck, Steven Kanua, Steven, and Eric
Yeah.
Paulson. Thanks to everybody who hit us up on Twitter. What up on Facebook, Brandon?
Over on Facebook, our friend Sire Dark, he sent us he sent a post. What's the over under on tonight's episodes having anything to do with Atlantis at all? No,
Yeah, that he sent that prior to the episode. If he had sent it afterwards, it would be far less impressive. But yeah, he definitely called it that the Atlantis thing was a ruse, that it was a diversion, if you will, and a great one at that. So props to you, Sire Dark, for your astute observation.
and I made this point to you when we were talking about it, about it having nothing to do with Atlantis, and this brings us to, like, this is the first episode of the show that has not focused on C-137 Rick and Morty, right? And that says a lot about the intro being different, and the fact that there's not an intro and it's just Joe Walsh and the Eagles in the city, and so for us, like the fans, we want to know more about Evil Morty, and we want to have this kind of serialized stuff. But C-137 Rick and Morty, they just want to keep having their adventures. They just want to have their wacky zany adventures with their mermaid puss. And so it doesn't have anything to do with Atlantis, but it doesn't have anything to do with Atlantis for us.
Sure. Like, absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that fact that this was a time where we really didn't focus on the titular characters that we've always. I mean, obviously Rick and Morty's abound, but it's not our Rick and Morty. And so I thought that was a really interesting way of going about it. And I don't know, it's risen to the top in classic episodes for the series.
It definitely has. Real quick thought. I meant to say this for Chuck Punch's tweet for the Evil Morty stuff. People have asked us to actually talk about, like, the Evil Morty theories, and I would like to talk about the Evil Morty theories, but we don't have time this episode. I think that's a really good conversation for us to have if we don't see Evil Morty again this season, to talk about after the season's over. So I want to throw that out there.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll continue the conversation.
We got so much content. We're slinging tent left and right here. So we'll definitely have plenty of time to talk about Evil Morty in the off season. Finally, we have a review that we want to thank Duke Effin Wayne for. Says he loves the podcast. Thank you for putting the podcast together. I know a lot of work and time must go into it, and I certainly appreciate that. If you are a fan of the show, you must add this to your weekly rotation. We're glad to agree with Duke Effin Wayne. And thank you to everybody who comes back every week, that downloads and subscribes to the podcast. Me and Brandon could have these conversations for an hour every week, but it's a lot funner having this conversation with all of you, Unity. So thank you so much for being a part of the show. And Brandon, I'm giving it to you, your final opportunity before we get out of here. Anything else you want to say?
I have nothing more to say, Travis, other than I appreciate everyone listening week to week, and go check out For the Damaged Coda by Blonde Redhead for that. Amazing.
Make it your ringtone or something. I don't know. All right, folks. Until next week. Thank you for listening. I'm Travis.
I'm Brandon.
And we'll see you next time. How much of this can we play before we get in trouble, Brandon?